Welcome back to the Retire Young radio show. I am your host, Joshua David, having a good time with my good friend and my great pal, but he is the mastermind of the operation, Mr. Al Conningson. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Retire Young podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. If you're just tuning in, Al was shedding some light on how the smart money is creating income with all asset classes, the stock market, the options market, the futures, and the Forex market, and some of the different techniques that they use with the buying power. Both the futures and Forex market are open 24 hours a day. That allows us as investors to trade any time of day. And Al, as we get into this next segment, I want to dissect retirement. We have a lot of listeners that are listening right now that are planning to retire within the next maybe 5 to 10 years. Some are retired right now, but we're also looking to see we're seeing a lot of people that are coming to these investing classes don't have retirement. And there's different techniques that they're looking to understand on how the smart money is creating retirements. So Al, let's talk about that. Let's first off talk about how the smart money is creating their own retirement plans.
Well, they're, again, not looking at a long-term type of a situation, which is what they are putting most of their clients in. And that, for if you're just starting out, you need to have a long-term portfolio strategy, and it's not necessarily what Wall Street is telling you what to do. They're doing things differently, but if you're looking for that cash right now, for additional cash, and need something on a more short-term basis, then that's a different type of investment than the long-term wealth buildup. So we kind of go through two different phases in our life, and one is that income buildup, and the other is the development of a portfolio for your later years, for your retirement years. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't been able to do that. Number one, the things are tough. It's almost 78% of the people in this country still live paycheck to paycheck. The money in your retirement account, that kind of is an overflow from what your job is providing for you. And for a lot of people, it's just not enough to pay all of their bills, have some fun, and then have enough to fund that retirement account. That's why a lot of people are looking at these classes. The people that are truly successful financially have multiple sources of income. It's not just from a job. It may be 3 or 4 or 5 different sources of income. So a lot of the students coming in are looking at the financial markets as a potential source. It may work. That may be something that will work for some people. For some people, maybe a second job, or maybe real estate is a different approach.
And it's really just understanding what is available out there. Because we're not saying that, we're not saying if you come to these investing classes, you're going to be able to do that. But
correct,
if you understand what those different techniques and concepts are, then you have other opportunities that you can explore.
Right. And one of the great things about coming to these classes is that you can kind of get your feel at. You can see whether this is something that is right for you. And if it is, then you take the next step. But, we talk about all these different assets and the way that the institutions, the smart money uses multiple assets. You don't have to do that. You don't have to learn everything. You don't have to learn about stock. You don't have to learn about futures, Forex, and options, all of those combined. Find something that works for you. And that's why this is something that should be specialized to each individual. There may be one asset you feel more comfortable with, or one asset that may help you achieve your goals better than another one. So it's I think, more important to maybe start out kind of finding a niche, something that works for you, that you feel comfortable with. You don't need to have knowledge and build the skills to use everything out there. So we don't want you to think that you have to do that. Keep it simple. Start with something very small that works for you. And then in retirement, when you do go into that retirement, there's really the phase you go to from the growth phase. Because when you're still working, when you're young and you're working, you're going through that growth phase where you can be a little more aggressive. When you go into retirement, you're into more of a distribution phase because the income from your job is gone. So
yeah, you're now unemployed.
You're unemployed. So the bills still keep coming in. The cost of living is there. I mean, being alive is not cheap, is not free. You have to have a place to live. You have to eat, maybe some transportation, a number of things. So where does that money come from? Well, for a lot of people, it's what's in their 401k or their 403b, their employer-sponsored retirement plan. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, maybe there isn't enough there, or they thought there was based on maybe living 5 or 10 years after you retire. only to find out that they live 20 or 30 or 40 years. And maybe there isn't enough there to cover all of those years.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. I mean, think about this. When you retire, you're now unemployed. So think about that. If let's say you were unemployed right now, would you have enough to retire? That's what we have to understand. Okay, do I have enough to retire? If I don't, what are some of the techniques or concepts I can utilize and learn to get there? And it all comes down to taking action, but you have to take action early enough. And there's never a good time to start. It's always going to be until tomorrow, but now is probably that best time, no matter where you are at in life. So, Al, we have a lot of listeners that have those company sponsor plans, the 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, but they also have IRAs. Now, let's talk about ways, because we have a lot of people that are coming to these classes. They want more control of their life.
Right.
They want more control of their finances. They don't want to have a stranger or a friend that lives down by the river managing their accounts. Now, how do you self-direct your accounts?
Well, you set up a self-directed IRA. Almost every one of the brokerage firms out there will do that. Probably look at one of the discount brokers. They'll set this up. You can either be a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, where you are controlling everything within that portfolio. There are no fees. There are no management fees, which are huge. We talk about that all the time. The fees it's like a vacuum just sucking needed dollars out of your portfolio. You don't have to let that happen.
Now, think about this. So a lot of advisors and brokers, they're going to say, oh, we're only going to charge you a 0.5 or a 0.75% fee.
Sure.
That adds up over time, but there's a lot more fees that come along with that.
Well, typically you are in a mutual fund. When you in your 401ks or 403bs, you're probably in mutual funds. That's kind of the go-to investment there. And there are fees within those funds. So in addition to the sponsor, the broker that's sponsoring the plan, in addition to their fees, which may be under 1% or close to 1%, you might have anywhere from 2 to 4% fees within that mutual fund. And that it's interesting that Wall Street has conditioned us to believe that they've created this, what's in our best interest. The best asset for us to trade or be in is mutual funds. But the truth is, it's what's in their best interest. When 401ks came around, that kicked off an explosive growth of Wall Street's dream investment. That's where the advisors, the brokers, they show you a long list of mutual funds for you to choose. Then they sit back and really don't provide any management or advice, but they collect fees from you. You're actually managing your retirement accounts right now, whether you know it or not. So the thought of going to a self-directed IRA, which for some people is a little scary, really is just transferring your money from a 401k or 403b into a different vehicle. You're still making the choices, but you have many more choices. In a employer-sponsored retirement plan, you will only make money if the market goes up. In your self-directed IRA, you can participate in all three directions of the market. Think about that from a probability standpoint. Are your probabilities better if you have only 1 out of 3 choices or 3 out of 3? And so the market is not going to go up continuously. We know that. We just saw that within the last week. What if there were assets or strategies you could use in your retirement account to participate when the market is going down? That's what will be a game changer for a lot of people and help a lot of people get through the next 20 or 30 years in their retirement, where maybe their initial retirement account wasn't enough to provide what they need during that time period.
Now, think about that. I mean, you said earlier that Wall Street has this, this great plan for everybody. Al, do you believe we have a retirement crisis?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're listening right now, and if you believe we have a retirement crisis, that's true. You see it in articles everywhere. Now, there's things that they're doing different that are also available to us, the public, and it's just understanding what those are. Al, coming up in this next segment, I want to continue this discussion on retirement accounts and retirement strategies, but I also want to talk about how we can start. This is Josh and Al. We will be right back.